Okay, so if you don't want spoiled but want to know if you should watch this or not, I would say give it a chance, and here's a link which I'll pop into the top right of your corner, which is pretty much a spoiler-free review, just gives away the first start of episode 1. Now if you're still here, let's get into it. Let's recap who Riri is. She's a genius MIT student, Iron Man wannabe, who created a vibranium detector, which then subsequently set off a war between the two most dangerous kingdoms in the MCU. She was returned home without her suit as she wasn't allowed to keep it. That's pretty much all we need to know. So Ironheart opens with a flashback of Riri and her best friend Natalie. We discover later that Natalie and Riri's stepdad both died in a drive-by shooting, but I suspect they didn't die immediately because we cut to her in MIT trying to create her suit to help first responders get to victims faster. This will probably explain why it's so traumatic. Now, this goal's a very altruistic one. Unfortunately, it pretty much gets forgotten between episodes 1 and 3. It's not really mentioned again. Now, why does she get kicked out? Well, she sets off a chain reaction which blows stuff up and apparently breaks a professor's arm. And she also gets found out for committing academic fraud, so she gets kicked out. So she's essentially doing a Mike Ross and completing people's projects for them. MIT have a zero tolerance policy for this. Also wasn't her first incident, and she turns her nose up at the idea of getting a job. You'd think somewhere like Oscorp Stark Industries would take someone this smart on, but she's too good for that.
That's a hot pile of garbage.
Skip to her stealing the suit from MIT, and although it was built using her grant money, that grant money was specifically for her to use while in MIT, so I'm pretty sure this suit belongs to them. It makes you question straight away if Marvel's setting up a hero here or a villain. Now, she goes back to Chicago and the suit powers down because MIT shuts down the AI that was helping power the suit, which causes Riri to crash and the suit to fall apart. Parker and John, who are the two antagonists at the start of the show, see Riri flying over, and somehow they just know where she lives, and they find her later on and pay for her junk parts that she's just bought to help fix up her suit with Xavier, who's the most forgettable character in this show. He's Natalie's brother. He's at the shop with Riri, loads the car for her while she talks to this random guy, and she goes on about how she's a bit too good for Stark Industries. There's no, hey, what you talking to him for, and there's no need to get involved in crime from Xavier. We immediately skip to Riri going to the location that John has told her about for her audition. I mean, looking at John, it's obviously not going to be a legal job interview. But anyway, she passes this interview. Enter Parker Robbins, the Hood, the most charming demon-powered guy you'll ever meet. He offers her 3 heists, like 3 wishes, and a fat paycheck. Riri hesitates for about 3 seconds and then agrees. Now, at the end of this episode, we have a flashback of Riri witnessing her stepdad and best friend die. Her stepdad is fixing an old car, which I suspect Dom Toretto grief style Riri will then use to make her final suit. Then Riri makes an AI version of her dead best friend by hooking up her brain to a computer, which is just something we can do now, and then faints when it talks back. That's cliffhanger of that, and that is episode 1. Now, episode 2, quick highlights of this is Riri traps Natalie in her laptop, and then she goes to get parts from a black arms dealer by herself. She brings her suit with her. I don't know why. I guess she just planned for the black arms dealer to let her fix the suit up while she gets the parts that she can't pay for. Anyway, she does that and then goes to the job. The crew for this job is hitting a gentrified tunnel project. Think Elon Musk's tunnel project, but about 50 times bigger underneath Chicago. Now, the plan's not to rob this place. No, it's to actually get a CEO to sign the contract while they're testing it and get put on the payroll. That's right, the Hood literally magic bullies a CEO into just hiring criminals. Well, I don't think a contract like this would hold up in a court of law, and if the CEO had some sense, surely immediately after they would inform the board or the FBI. But I don't think this contract was actually a business one. I think it was a contract for the CEO's soul, which we'll get into later on. As to why Parker might be doing this. So it ends with Riri exiting the tunnel after completing her section of the job, and a guard or police officer, I forget which, holds her up. Natalie, the AI, freezes, and Riri can't close her mask or move. Really reliable. Is it possible they're hinting here that Natalie's death might not just be from a drive-by but police brutality? Possibly. If handled really badly in later episodes, this might explain why Feige didn't really want this released, or at least part of the reason. Anyway, Hood shoots the guard, bending a bullet around Riri, grazing her shoulder, but she's in the suit. Natalie points out Parker's hood is also not from around here. In this episode, there's also a bit of foreshadowing with us seeing Faust posters in the background, which Faust is a character in history who sold his soul to the devil to get knowledge and power and so on, and ended up regretting it. Now in this episode we also meet Joe. He's an emasculated mess of a man who allows a neighbour to let their dog shit on his yard. Now he drops his shopping, jumps in fear at seeing a suit dragged behind a little girl. Riri then somehow gets into his house and is tearing it up, and again he's just allowing this to happen, even though he eventually reveals he's a black arms dealer when Riri blackmails him. Now, how can you be a black arms dealer and this neutered? Anyway, he's got a secret bunker full of missiles, nanotech, and several of his own blueprints. That's pretty much the bulk of episode 2. That's all that really happens. Episode 3 opens and summarizes the heist plan for everyone, which is that no metal objects are allowed in this greenhouse area that they're going to, and it'll set off security measures that'll flood carbon dioxide into these areas and kill everyone in them. So Riri goes back home, the police show up, and she was the last one to phone Rampage, aka Stuart, the previous tech expert for the Hood gang. It's pretty much assumed that Hood or John had him killed. Natalie and Riri decide then they can't leave the gang straight away without understanding the Hood's powers, so they hatch a plan to get her laser cutter into the lab, which needs one of Joe's blueprints. So Joe, who's still pretending he's a harmless fool, while replacing his limbs, literally inserting tech into his arm, we find out he's actually Obadiah Stane's son, and his father's ashes are just chilling in the kitchen. He panics. Riri promises not to rat him out. He agrees to let her take his skin graft tech, which essentially allows anything to get past metal detectors, but stipulates that this tech is specifically his and he doesn't want to get caught up in any criminal investigations and go down the same path as his dad. Probably not the best idea to get into the black arms trade then, mate. And guess what she does later on? She drops the high-tech cloak at the crime scene as well as her laser. So congrats Ezekiel, you're now an accessory to murder, and this will tip him over the crazy cliff. So during the heist everything falls apart. Alarms, gunfire, Parker loses it and murders the CEO when he won't sign a contract. Crew members start suffocating in greenhouses. Riri ends up fighting cousin John, who sees that she's cut off a section of the hood. Natalie saves the day, kind of. She lets John die of oxygen loss, but saves Riri, who kind of just loses it. They leave the heist, and what they've left behind is John, the laser, and the skin graft. So my bet is from the trailer that this is Ezekiel fighting Riri, and he might be the final villain of the show. Bullets ain't really going to do anything to Riri, that's mainly what the hood uses. And Parker, meanwhile, after all of this, is screaming at his cloak like it betrayed him. A manifestation of John appears like it's choking to torture him, and then the iron suit shadow veils Parker, hinting at him now realizing what's happened. And that's right, Mephisto has entered the chat, finally unveiled in Ironheart of all places, not WandaVision, not Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but Ironheart. So that's that. Mephisto's here, confirmed on IMDb, and we cut back to Riri. She's spiraling really hard, paranoid, grieving, probably having another panic attack, and she's going to either be wanted right now by SHIELD, FBI, or another criminal gang. And that's episode 3. So to recap, Riri's making one dumb move after another.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
Ezekiel's a walking time bomb now. Mephisto is officially in the building. This might be Marvel's stealth villain origin story, and honestly I'm kind of here for it, because if this is your hero, I'd hate to meet the villain. She's not done anything heroic at all so far. The show's pretty entertaining, don't get me wrong. They're really going to have to ramp up the heroics soon. So part 2 will drop for this review of Ironheart when episodes 4 to 6 hit. What I think is going to happen in these episodes, we're going to see Ezekiel integrate the tech with his limbs all over the place. We're going to see demonic magic, the armored suit battle between Ezekiel and Riri likely having to stop the hood from killing a bunch of people or something. That's not going to be much of a fight, I don't think, except trying to find him when he goes invisible. So there you go. Overall, I enjoyed the show. Solid 6 out of 10 in my opinion. Like, sub, comment if you'd sell your soul for better writing, and cheerio.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.